The union of Xenia craftsmanship and the velocity of color and spontaneity of the elder statesman. It's the very idea of cross-pollination, which happens here in Oasi Xenia.
Discover the collaboration on Xenia.com.
Welcome into the latest episode of the Show Before the Show podcast, the official podcast of minor league baseball, as we round the corner into the final week and a half of the minor league season in 2023. My name is Tyler Mon, joined from New York City by Sam Dykstra and Benjamin Hill. Dudes, you were waiting around a little while for me to sign on because I kind of forgot what time zone we had agreed on, what time today. What's going on with you?
Yeah, things are, like you said, we're wrapping up the minor league regular season still on the AAA side. AA is currently undergoing the postseason series. High A and single A, all those leagues have crowned new champions. You and I will talk about that later. So yeah, we're really in that kind of interesting zone where everything's tiered. There is still minor league regular season play going on, but there's also postseason games going on. There are 2 full season leagues that are completely done. It's kind of funny to be in that zone right now. Yeah, Ben, how do you kind of look at this time? Because as somebody who's still checking in on promotions, but the playoffs, sometimes they have promotions, as we talked about last week with Palm Beach and Jupiter. Congratulations to Jupiter, by the way, for winning that series and the Florida State League. But yeah, how do you view this kind of twilight zone that we're in?
Yeah, well, like you said, Sam, tiered, and that I'm crying often.
I said it with an I, you said it with an A, in case anybody couldn't hear that in our inflection.
Yeah, so sad to see the season say goodbye. And yeah, every day, you're waking up. If you didn't follow it that night, you're waking up to being like, oh, this league's over. And then it's kind of surreal that AAA is still playing regular season games for the time being. So it is not as uniform as it used to be in the minor league world up through the 2019 season. Most of the stuff was in parallel, but now it is a tiered system. And like Sam mentioned, we had Palm Beach Cardinals general manager Andrew Seymour on the podcast last week. He was talking about playing the Jupiter Hammerheads, and those 2 teams share the same ballpark. And Jupiter won the bragging rights for ballpark of the Palm Beaches, where they were playing right now, for Roger Dean Stadium, where they play long term after renovation. And I was looking it up today, and Jupiter had never won a championship. They were established in 1998, so that ends one of the longest droughts. That's an aspect of the postseason that I've covered in the past, is like long droughts. I think when I go to postseason stuff, I like to do that kind of stuff. I need to update my article because things keep changing. And then I want your guys' opinion on this, not to already go down a little rabbit hole.
No, let's do it.
But in minor league baseball, it's not uncommon, especially for weather-related reasons, for there to be co-champions because a championship series is not complete. Do you think a co-championship counts as a championship in terms of saying when was your last title and saying, in calculating a postseason drought? I have tended to discount it, even though they're not the team's fault that they didn't win outright. They may have well, but I feel if you go to a postseason championship series, don't finish it, and you're a co-champion, then that's not really winning a league title. But in the past, when I've talked about championship droughts and whatnot, sometimes teams that have won a co-championship are like, excuse us, 2017. And I'm like, well, there was a hurricane and you didn't play, that kind of thing. What's your take on that?
I would say count it, because you get a ring, you get a pennant if that's something they put up in some of these stadiums. I would count it personally. But for the purposes of your story, I would just say up top, since their last outright championship.
That is the word I use, outright.
Yeah, and I think that's fair. I think you can, as long as you set the parameters up top of saying, when was your last outright championship? Now, if we're just talking about a drought makes it seem like the whole point of a drought, right, is that there's no rain, by definition, that nothing has happened. Something has happened here.
Yeah.
A drought is defined by the absence of something, and something has happened. So I wouldn't call it a drought, but if you want to say the longest runs without an outright title, which doesn't really work for SEO or a headline on a online story, I get that. But that's where I come down. Tyler, what do you think?
Well, here's my thought about the whole drought conversation is I feel like the drought is the absence of a championship celebration. And if you're just awarded a split title, by like a league office that had to make a determination based on weather, I don't think you're not like popping champagne in the clubhouse and stuff and like, running around on the field in your jockstrap. So I see the point of not counting. I think we're all in agreement that like the most important thing is when was your last outright title, your last uncontested title. And I understand why organizations would include it, but yeah, a co-championship it's literally an asterisk championship. Like when I've written media guides in the past for teams that have co-championships in their history, you put an asterisk and you denote like, oh, split championship with Wilmington due to hurricane, whatever. So yeah, it's a championship, but it's not a full championship. I feel like, you got to be able to pop bottles and celebrate and have decided it on the field for it to count in my mind as like, that's a full on, you won this thing.
Absolutely. And in that regard, congrats to the Charleston River Dogs, who were established in 1980, played in the South Atlantic League through 2020, never won a championship, an outright title. They weren't declared co-championships. They had nothing, 1980 to 2020. Then they switched leagues, what I guess was initially High A East, but then Carolina League, three in a row.
Yeah, single, yeah.
Three in a row.
Single, low A East.
Yeah, low A East. But regardless, they got out of that brutal South Atlantic League 3 in a row. Nothing for 40 years, 1980 to 2020, and now they're three-peat champions. It's just those are the kind of things that interest me about the playoffs. But you guys will
held
have
back.
Yeah, we can get in. I want to get into that Charleston later because that is fascinating to me. How one team can win 3 straight league titles. The fact that these games are postseason series, like anything can happen in a best of 3 series, and they continually keep winning. It shouldn't be a shock that it's the Tampa Bay Rays who do this, but still, it's just random happenstance would tell you that this would not be possible, and yet it is.
And their previous affiliation for much of that time, the New York Yankees, not churning out title winners. Do the Yankees have a winning problem in the minors? My column. No, I'm kidding. Please don't fire up your angry emails. But if you do have angry emails about some hot take or another that we've fired out on this podcast, you can send them to us, podcast@milb.com, as we welcome you into this latest episode of the show before the show. Yeah, we're kicking things off talking about these final couple of weeks in minor league baseball, and not just stuff on field, but stuff off field as well, which includes there's a whole lot of discussion about the Veeck family as of late, including from our very own Benjamin Hill, and that is due in large parts of the new Netflix documentary, The Saint of Second Chances. I have not watched it yet, full disclosure. I had it on my watch list. I was thinking maybe I would watch it on a long flight that I took a couple of days ago. I haven't gotten a chance to watch it. I have heard great things, but there's also a lot of stuff on the sites. They're looking back at a very interesting guy, very interesting family, very interesting chapters in baseball history.
Yeah, The Saint of Second Chances. It is now streaming on Netflix. It is all about Mike Veeck, the son of Bill Veeck Jr., who is one of the most well-known executives in baseball history. A real maverick, a real renegade. Owned the Cleveland Indians, St. Louis Browns, and finally in the late 70s, the Chicago White Sox. And so the movie is about Mike Veeck, kind of hating that he's Bill's son just because he carries that name and, trying to escape from under Bill's shadow. And he's working as promotions director at Comiskey Park, trying to do just about anything to get fans in the stands. And then one of those things was Disco Demolition Night, which, has been covered a good deal in the past. But long story short, it occurred during a doubleheader, and a literal riot occurred between games during this portion of the evening in which they literally blew up disco records. And it's a whole fascinating story. There's a lot to, dissect with it. But the big picture was that sent Mike Veeck out of baseball for a long time. And he found his redemption and a second chance in the world of the minor leagues. First with the Miami Miracle, who are then playing in Pompano Beach, although I believe they still kept the Miami Miracle name. They are now Fort Myers. First the Miracle, now the Mighty Muscles. But in starting in about 1990, he got back into the game and went from Fort Myers to St. Paul. the St. Paul Saints. They were an independent team all the way up through 2021 when they became in the AAA affiliate of the Saints. And with St. Paul in particular, he really established that team as they kind of go for broke, promotionally freewheeling, just crazy entity. And the Saints still have, a large portion of that spirit today. Things like the ball pig, a pig every year. They get a new pig every year. And I think now they switch the pig out twice a year, but who delivers balls to umpires. They have a nun who had been banished from her parish for giving massages. So they brought her out to the ballpark to give free massages to fans. Sister Roz. All sorts of crazy stuff in the early days, such as, they played at Midway Stadium from 1993 to 2014. And, it was an old rundown ballpark in an industrial area. They didn't have anything close to a Jumbotron or a video board. So Mike Veeck hired a troupe of mimes to reenact plays on top of the dugout after they happened. So it was that kind of spirit. I interviewed Mike a couple weeks ago, but those stories are coming out now. One about his impact on the minor leagues, and the other one more in list form regarding some of his, craziest, most impactful, or just his favorite, promotions he staged in minor league baseball through the years. And it was good to talk to Mike because even though I've known who he's been or who he is for almost the entirety of my career, I think during the time that I have been covering minor league baseball, he hasn't been as front and center as a figure. Certainly a presence, but not a day in, day out operator at any particular place. So we had really never crossed paths. Like, he knew who I was and I obviously knew who he was, but it was good to talk to him and, hear his take on a lot of things from his career and the industry now. And so long story short, keep an eye out, MLB.com on Friday, the day this podcast is released, for my story on Mike Veeck, and then another one on Monday about his top promotions. And I would recommend, especially if you're listening to this podcast, you're predisposed to minor league baseball, almost certainly. If not, welcome, but how did you get here? So I think the listenership to this podcast would overlap considerably in a Venn diagram with viewers who would enjoy The Saint of Second Chances, which is on Netflix now. So, check it out. It is an interesting movie. It's got a lot of archival footage from those St. Paul Saints days in particular, a lot of good Disco Demolition Night footage as well. You could, I'm sure whole books have been devoted to Disco Demolition Night. And one of the analyses of Disco Demolition Night, which is correct, is there was because they're destroying, it was rock fans destroying disco. There was this element of, these are like kind of angry white guys mad about music made by, people of color or who are gay or otherwise not not straight. And so it's an analysis there of, there was just an ugliness at its core. And I talked to Mike a little bit about it, and he apologizes in the movie for that element of it. And his excuse, such as it is, which I think is a good one, is that he was just doing anything and everything. They did Disco Demolition Night because they had done a disco night previously that brought in people. Then it's like, okay, that was successful. Why don't we do one for people who don't like disco? So I don't think it was done with any ideological or discriminatory or trying to capitalize on anger. But it was interesting to hear his perspective on that and to have so much of the film, revolve around that incident, because it really didn't destroy his career, but it definitely knocked him for a loop. And it's ultimately what caused him to end up in the minor leagues, which, that the minor league baseball industry is better off for it.
Yeah. And you said that story is coming out on Monday in terms of the top promotions. Just give us a taste. Like what is one that stood out to you? Not necessarily the one that you put at number one. We don't need to, like I said, we don't need to spoil the whole thing, but like, what is one you want to share with people just to give people a taste of what to look for on Monday?
Well, some of them I mentioned already, like the Ball Pigs and Sister Roz and things of that nature, Mimo Vision. But one I'll mention, just because when I asked Mike point blank, what are your favorite promotions? This is the first one he mentioned, and it's so dumb. And it was in Fort Myers when they were playing in Pompano Beach, the mannequin race. And literally they would just have a mannequin on the field and then get a fan to race against the mannequin who just stood there. And that was the first thing he said when I asked him what his favorite promos were. And I just think that speaks
The
to
race, I feel like I could win.
I think you could win the mannequin race.
I believe
could
in you,
win that.
Tyler.
Yeah. There's not many races I could win. I feel like I could win that one.
Right. And that's the sort of thing, so stupid, so simple and so stupid that I think teams today, maybe not a mannequin race, but even when it might be a little harder to do certain promotions, based on who knows what trademark issues and, not wanting to offend anybody, just still that element of just be really stupid remains. And I think that's a great lesson for everyone working in minor league baseball is just be stupid. I mean, fans remember that stupid stuff. A mannequin race, if you were at a ballpark and they said now it's time for the mannequin race, that's 45 seconds of absurd theater. And it doesn't cost much to pull off and it's very simple to execute.
For some reason, that just made me think of taking the Brewers sausage race and literally just racing a sausage.
Yeah, exactly.
An
If you're a
actual
Brewers
sausage
affiliate,
itself.
yeah, there
It's
you
time
go.
for the sausage
that
race.
idea.
And you just have a man stand or a woman or whoever
Whoever.
stand next to a sausage link they put on the grass.
See if the sausage link can roll. That's all I'm asking. Yeah.
Oh man. Again, another one I think I could win. Ben, I know we've got some travel discussion coming up about some of your last trips of the year. Now you've got newsletter pieces that are coming out about those. So we're going to hold off on getting into the details of the travel. But what are some of the final things that you're piecing together from road trips for the newsletter that we'll get a chance to talk about over the next couple of weeks?
Oh, quite a bit. Sam and I last week talked about my time in Bowling Green and in Louisville, the Kentucky stops on my last trip. My most recent newsletter that just appearing in inboxes everywhere as we speak on Thursday afternoon was all about Bowling Green. And because I've been just busy with non-road trip stuff for the better part of the last week, I still have a lot of stories from my last road trip and then odds and ends from even other road trips that I didn't get to. So I think starting tomorrow and then into next week and the next, there's just going to be a lot of road trip stuff coming up. And I'm grateful for it because as things get slower with the stuff going on and, it's all going to be over soon in terms of things actually happening on the field. I'm still going to have a lot to draw on through the month of October. So all I can say is stay tuned.
He
That was
is
my dramatic
Benjamin.
attempt to say
He is
stay tuned.
Benjamin Hill. You can find the newsletter, of course, on the site, milb.com. You can follow Ben on social media at Ben's Biz and The Ben's Biz. And thanks, man. We'll catch up on all that stuff next week.
Yeah, I'm off to go race a sausage.
Good luck to you.
Thanks. I'll send you a link.
Beat me to it.
Buying tickets to your favorite events shouldn't be stressful. Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater near you. With killer deals on last-minute tickets and their best price guarantee, you can stop stressing over the tickets and start getting hyped for the fun you'll have. Forget planning months in advance. Game Time has deals on tickets right up to the day of the event. Get exclusive flash deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. Buy tickets in a matter of seconds. 2 taps and you're set. Plus, tickets are sent directly to your phone, so you never have to dig through your email and you'll be ready to check right in. So snag the tickets without the stress with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code BASEBALL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code BASEBALL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed.
Sam and I have a lot of on-field stuff to discuss as we continue along in this week's episode of the show before the show. The minor league baseball regular season playoffs now wrapping up at a whole bunch of levels. We've already been crowning champions. You heard Ben talk about Jupiter. Charleston, also a discussion point after 40 years of 0 titles at the then Class A full season level. Since the restructuring of minor league baseball, 3 titles in 3 years for the Charleston River Dogs. Sam, run us through the champions that have already been crowned in the minors so far.
Yeah, so we'll start there at Single A. Charleston won the Carolina League title, 3rd year in a row, and I will return to that briefly. Jupiter, as you just said, is Florida State League. They defeated Clearwater 2-1 in the best of 3 series there. The Modesto Nuts, single A affiliate of the Seattle Mariners, they swept the Rancho Cucamonga Quakes in the California League, winning that series 2-0. So the Modesto Nuts take home a title. The Everett Aqua Sox fell to the Vancouver Canadians 3-1 in the Northwest League Finals. That league does not have a semifinals. There are too few teams. So those two squads went straight to the finals. Vancouver emerged victorious there. The Greenville Drive defeated the Hudson Valley Renegades in a Red Sox-Yankees championship in the South Atlantic League. They swept that series 2-0. And the Cedar Rapids Colonels defeated the Great Lakes Loons in the Midwest League. Emmanuel Rodriguez, one of the top prospects in the Twins system, hit a grand slam in the deciding game. Emmanuel Rodriguez, super exciting prospect, had a really high OBP last year, tore his meniscus, missed a lot of time, was a little bit inconsistent to begin this season, but really came on strong in the second half, can hit the ball hard, has a good approach. I'm really excited to see what happens for him moving forward. I would have hoped he would have ended this year at Double-A, but the Twins keep him at High A, and the Colonels reap the rewards there. So a few top prospects stood out in some of those series. You go back to Jupiter, Noble Meyer, Thomas White, two of the Marlins' top picks from this year. Both of those guys got to start playoff games, so they get their careers started off on the right foot. But I want to go back to Charleston real fast, Tyler, because I'm not saying the Rays did anything wrong here. I just found this fascinating. They, at one point, had called up Xavier Isaac, their first-round pick last year, now a top 100 prospect. Guy hits the ball super hard, is a more athletic first baseman now than I think the Rays thought they were getting when they first drafted him. Has stolen some bags, which has been impressive. They called him up to High A Bowling Green, hit the cover off the ball there, did really, really well. Then they sent him back down to Charleston for the playoffs. He's been with that team all year. This is not stolen valor or anything. It's not really a ringer, but it's just fascinating to see the Rays make that decision. And he got to celebrate with his teammates. Again, the guys who he'd spent multiple months with, and they get their ring. They get to spray around. I'm sure it was sparkling cider. Xavier Isaac was a first-round pick out of high school. It wasn't champagne in that locker room.
Only so many things he can drink legally.
Yes, exactly. But just the fact that Charleston has won 3 straight titles. I mean, we consistently talk about this with the Rays, how they have teams making the postseason year after year after year at the minor league level. When I checked it the other day, they were, again, 4th best in organizational winning percentage this season. Durham is on the cusp of the International League postseason. Montgomery, I got to see them clinch a spot in the Southern League playoffs over the weekend in Biloxi. Charleston doing this. The Rays, we consistently talk about them being at the top of the AL East or near it, or like in the playoffs. They haven't gotten over that hump yet. They haven't won a World Series yet. But I think it really does help that they have these minor leaguers coming in who only know one thing, and that is winning ball games. And they do it around each other. And, it's one thing to talk about the dream of having a homegrown system and being, relying on calling guys up and knowing you can just plug a hole in because there's so much depth in the system. It's another to do it. And the Rays have certainly accomplished that over the years. And in case you thought it was stopping, nope, this Charleston team is moving up to High A next year, and somebody's going to replace them too. And we might be talking about a 4th straight River Dogs title next season.
All right, Sam. Well, in addition to the season finishing with titles for some teams, the season also finishes with promotions for some top prospects. Wyatt Langford is headed up to the AAA level, one of the Texas Rangers' top talents. As of right now, he's their number 2 prospect, along with Jack Leiter, their number 5, who has struggled over his first couple of pro seasons at AA, but he's going to get a look at AAA before the season is over. That's on the Rangers side. On the Milwaukee Brewers side, Jackson Chourioand is up at AAA, and obviously we've talked a lot about Jackson Chourioand over the years on this podcast. It's kind of funny to say over the years with Jackson Chourioand. He's 19 years old, but he's up with AAA Nashville, so some really aggressive promotions. I don't even know if we can call them aggressive promotions anymore because these are just promotions as baseball works nowadays, it feels like. But give us your gut reaction to Wyatt Langford and Jackson Chourioand especially.
Yeah, if you want to use the word aggressive, I think aggressive might be more the case on the Wyatt Langford side, just because he's reaching AAA in his draft year, which would feel insane. But we already have somebody from this draft class in the major leagues, and Nolan Shanuel. and the Angels. Now the Angels, are out there. They call guys up super early. They do this year in and year out. They drafted somebody in Nolan Chanuel who clearly could hit the ball at college, has started his career with a 20 plus game on base streak. So it's carrying to the major leagues. The power isn't there for first baseman. The guy can get on base. So that's a special case. But Wyatt Langford, what he was doing at Frisco prior to his call up was somebody who, I use the phrase small sample size a lot on the show and in my writing. And I tell people, don't get too high, don't get too low over a small sample. But Wyatt Langford in 12 games at Frisco was batting .405, slugged .762, had 7 extra base hits in 17 hits, walked more times than he struck out. He had 11 walks and 7 strikeouts, stole 1 base. And part of that was coming at Amarillo, which is a launching pad, as we know. So I don't want to look too much into the slugging numbers, but the approach is what really surprised me. The guy did not swing and miss very often in the Texas League. But when he did swing, it was a pretty vicious swing. He was up there to make hard contact, and he still wasn't swinging through the ball. So I think the big thing here is you look at, 2 things for me. One, he gets called up to Round Rock because Round Rock is still playing games. And that's a big deal here. You want Wyatt Langford still playing. You don't want his season to end quite yet. I get that. I'm going to say 3 things. They also call him up at the time when the Express are going for a postseason spot. As we sit here on Thursday, Round Rock is currently tied with Reno with a 41-30 second half record for one of the 2 spots in the Pacific Coast League Championship Series. So getting Wyatt Langford is a big boost to the Express postseason chances. And if they do make the postseason, guess what? That's more games for Wyatt Langford, which I think is what the Rangers want. But here's the third thing, and I don't say this lightly. You look at where the Rangers are. They are in a dogfight in the AL West with the Mariners and with the Astros. They're in a dogfight in the AL wildcard race if they don't win the West with the Mariners, the Blue Jays, and I have this feeling. I know they called up Evan Carter. I know that they're trying a lot of things there, the Rangers. I have this feeling they are at least talking about Wyatt Langford.
Wow.
Making a major league debut this year because the approach is so good and because the batted ball data is so good. He showed up in Round Rock. First game, I think, had the 8th highest exit velocity of an Express player all season long. First game. Was immediately hitting the ball harder than most anybody else on that team all season long. There's something in his approach. I love watching the guy hit. He looks so relaxed up there, but again, it is a vicious swing from the right side. He is a better runner than I think some people give him credit for, even though he's played a lot of left field. I don't think the guy needs much more seasoning. This is not like a Paul Skeens situation where you don't want to waste innings, or a Dylan Cruz situation where, he struggled early on at AA and you just want to let good things lie and let him be. Wyatt Langford continually needs to be challenged, and he keeps passing those challenges. And if you're the Texas Rangers and you made some big investments in the last few years, this is a team you need to be going for it with. Wyatt Langford's probably one of the best hitters in the organization right now, and he is fighting for a chance with a major league team. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm not making any guarantees, but I think that's part of the calculus.
That is pretty cool stuff. And we're just in such an interesting time there's a great piece that's up on defector.com today about, the way that we have now started to see top prospects making these climbs faster than ever before, and how much that has changed the landscape in the game of baseball. And Jackson Chourioand is largely the same way. I mean, again, he's 19 years old, and we're having these conversations about him and at what point he's going to be a big contributor in Milwaukee.
Yeah, I mean, the Brewers kept Jackson Chourioand at AA all season long, but like you said, this is his age 19 season. It was aggressive for him to get to AA on opening day to begin with.
Wildly younger than the rest of the AA level when he started this season there.
Yeah, and if you look at his numbers as the season went along, he was doing okay in the first half. He was kind of treading water. But around after the All-Star break, when he went to the All-Star Futures game and came back, he took off in the second half. I mean, he was really hitting the ball for power. He wasn't swinging and missing as much. He wasn't striking out as much. There's some debate I know even within the Brewers of like, was that the Southern League ball changing, going from the pre-tack that was being used in the first half? Did that affect things? You're about to hear an interview here with Biloxi manager Mike Guerrero, and I asked him that directly, so I don't want to spoil that. But I think a lot of that, it might have been part of that, but it also might have been the guy was growing into the level. He was 19 years old. He needed to see AA pitching for half a season and grow into it and make adjustments. And he did. He made the right adjustments. Now he's getting this call up to AAA Nashville this week. This is just a 1-week assignment. This is just to get him a taste. He's going to be opening up at AAA, we believe, next season. I mean, who knows? He might come out with his hair on fire in the Cactus League and really force his way into the Milwaukee's opening day lineup. But this is just a kid who, like, they wanted to reward for his second half turnaround, get him a look at Nashville, and send him on his way into the offseason, a big offseason, because whether that's on opening day, whether that's in June, whether that's in August, he will be debuting at some point next year, which is crazy because that'll be his age 20 season. He's doing some stuff. He's a 2040 guy as a teenager. The last guy to do that, Ronald Acuna Jr.
Pretty good precedent to be following. That pivots us pretty perfectly to our conversation from this week. Sam, you were in Biloxi last week, and we get to take part of that trip with you now.
Yeah, so I got to talk to Mike Guerrero, the Biloxi manager, about Jackson Chourioand and that second half turnaround and what he's seen from him all year, and about a host of other topics. I mean, there was a lot to dig into on that Biloxi team. Now, they fell short of the Southern League postseason, but they were right in the thick of things because of guys like Chourio, Jeferson, Quero, Tyler Black, Jacob Misiorowski, Carlos Rodriguez, who got called up to AAA Nashville this week as well, was one of the best pitchers in AA all season long in 2023. This Brewers system is one of my favorites in baseball because when they graduate somebody like a Joey Wiemer or Garrett Mitchell, Sal Frelick, Bryce Terang, they continually just have another group that just kind of pops up. They're not loaded like the Orioles or Dodgers or something like that. It's not the deepest, but they always seem to turn some of their really good prospects into great prospects, and that's really difficult to do. So the Brewers do this year in and year out. Here's me talking to Mike Guerrero about some of those big name prospects in the Brewers system.
Wait, are you gaming? On a Chromebook?
Yep. It's got a high-res 120Hz display, plus this killer RGB keyboard. And I can access thousands of games anytime, anywhere.
Stop playing.
What?
Get out of here.
Huh?
Yeah, I want you to stop playing and get out of here so I can game on that Chromebook.
Got it.
Discover the ultimate cloud gaming machine, a new kind of Chromebook.
All right, just kind of start. I know you guys are 2 games left in the regular season, but what has this team been like managing for the full season this year?
Well, having the youngest team in the league, a lot of work, a lot of adjustments, and a lot of growing up, and developing a young group that have achieved a lot and have gotten better a lot.
Yeah, when you have somebody who's 19 years old at this level, like Chourio, how do you acclimate them to this level? What is the first thing you do with a guy that young?
I think the most important thing is patience. Patience, and it's a step by step. Teaching on an everyday basis what's right, what's the right way to do things, and how you go about your business. It's important to understand that what you do on an everyday basis. It's like you have an apartment, you got to pay rent every day. When you play baseball, you got to pay rent every day. That's how I look at it. Baseball, there is no guarantee, so that's why you got to pay every day, pay your dues every day on the field, doing the right thing and being productive.
Yeah, and with Jackson, what is something you've seen him adjust to as the season's gone on?
A lot of good things on the plate, and a lot of good things defensively on the base path. Yeah, Jackson is just going to take just patience for him to keep developing and growing up on the field. I do think he can play in the big leagues right now. But is that the right thing? No. it's going to take a little time, a little more seasoning to you know, how the game is playing the higher levels. Higher levels are playing a little different, and you know, you play for that W. And that's what we're trying to accomplish as a team, as an organization. That, you know, everyone in baseball, on a baseball team, has a part to do, and you know, learning how to do and contribute in every phase of the game, not just offensively, defensively, on the base path. And he has the ability to change the game in all the aspect of the game. So that's what is important. But also the mental aspect of the game is a weapon. We want to be able to be mentally strong. It's a negative game, and we want people, when they go through rough patches that, you know, this game brings, it's a really negative game. You got to be strong mentally to be successful.
Yeah, and with him, it seems like July 1st is when something really changed for him. I know that's around the time the ball changed, but what kind of swing decision changes have you seen him make? Like, what are some pitches he's laying off or swinging at better?
I don't think they're you know, it's have anything to do with the baseball change. I think it has to do with more experience, more patience, and swinging strikes. You know, right. It's you're only as good as the pitches you swing. So if you swing a bad pitch, don't wait for being really productive. You know, if you're able to control the strike zone as a hitter, you're going to be more successful than not.
What is something he's laying off then, now that he was swinging at early in the first half?
Balls.
Just generally.
Just generally balls.
Yeah.
You know, so you learn how to do it, and that's what seasoning means. Is like you learn how to lay off tough pitches, or there's going to be tough pitches in the strike zone that you're going to have to learn how to hit it, or hit a foul ball on it, so you can get another pitch. We call those pitcher's pitch. So you learn how to do that, and in the long run, you're going to be successful. Control the strike zone.
Right, and you were talking about how he controls the game on the base paths too. Between him, Tyler Black, it seems like you guys have given guys green lights this year. How much more aggressive is the game now in terms of stolen bases than it was a few years ago?
I don't think it's in terms of green light. I don't think you're not doing anything if you get green light to the base runner, base stealers. You teach pitching mechanics, what triggers the windup, what pitchers have different things that triggers the line and the windup. Once a base stealer learns how to do that, becomes a lot easier to steal a bag or not. So yes, there will be times that you will say that they have green light, but we'll try to teach it different ways.
Then how much more have you guys like leaned on that part of the game then, I guess, because of the rules changes, and it seems like everybody's trying to steal more, but especially you guys were more successful with it this year?
Well, I think it's just you got to teach the guys that had speed to do that. If we have, if you have a skill and you don't develop it, it's a wasted skill. So guys that had speed, and you know, we're trying to teach how to take advantage of their skills and their talent. And the more times you score runs, as far as I know, you know, this game is about runs.
Right.
At the end of the day, how many runs we score more than the other team. So that's what's important. You win ball games running the base path and scoring run and being productive, you know, in that side. So in this game, there is a lot of side of the coins, and we need to be really good at it, especially if you have that ability to steal bases and change the game in the base path. For other teams that don't do it, they're going to take 3 hits to score a run.
Right.
We might not need a hit to score a run because we're able to do that.
Yeah, fair enough. And you talk about there's multiple sides of the game. Jeferson Quero, known as one of the best defensive catchers in the minors. What kind of effect does he have on a whole pitching staff?
I think it's the trust that the pitchers, you know, it makes it easier for the pitchers that the rhythm, the timing, mechanism, they feel more comfortable. They don't have to worry about that side of the coin because he's able to control the running games and put good fingers out there and good receiver blocks real well. So, being only 20 years old, there's not too many 20 years old that have the ability that he has.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and offensively, since he's come back from the hand injury, numbers haven't quite been there. How much do you think that's kind of affected him in the second half?
I think that those are the things that you guys look at. I don't look at it that way. I look at it. I have a 20-year-old kid in AA that has 16 homers and been productive all year.
Right. No, fair enough. And you also got Brock Wilken recently. What kind of impact did he add to the lineup, especially end of a long year for him, having played college ball but still been productive?
Well, you put together the year that college and after he's been signed and all that, he has played a full year. I think he's still adapting to this level, and and obviously he has a lot of skill, and we're really happy to have him. And I think at one point you're going to see a future star out there. So there is a lot of bright spots in this on this team, I will say. And we're really happy to have him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I was talking to Carlos Rodriguez, the pitcher, earlier. What kind of adjustments do you feel like you've gotten out of him compared to where he was in April to where he is now?
I think I don't think we call adjustments. I think he's able to recognize what he needs to do to be successful. We don't want our players to play like AA players. Mm-hmm. We want our players to play like big leaguers in AA, so that can transform their mentality into a big leaguer. Mm-hmm. If you play like a AA player, that's all you're gonna be.
Fair.
So that's the way I see it. That's what we're trying to infuse to our guys.
Mm-hmm. So what is something that Carlos does that acts like a major leaguer at this level?
The way he pitch. Yeah, the way he pitch. The way he does go about his business, consistency, and day in and day out on every time he takes him out, and his pitchability. Mm-hmm. Throw strike with every pitch that he has in his repertoire, and that gives him a chance to be a pretty good pitcher.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and following the Brewers system year after year, they graduate guys like Frelick, Weimer get to the major leagues, and then there's somebody else who becomes a big name behind them, it feels like. How do you kind of define what the Brewers' development philosophy is that allows that to happen?
I think you have to, on those terms, you have to give credit to the whole organization. We have a scouting department, the player development department, and the whole organization has gotten together some great philosophy that we're able to get players with great skill, and we're able to develop those guys. Mm-hmm. And put it on a real quick, real quick to affect our big league ball club. That's a credit to everyone. What we're doing out here is not. It's not just one side. Everyone. Every time we graduate a player that goes to the big leagues, like you mentioned, Frelick, Mitchell, all those guys that were out there, they are playing the big leagues. Right. They were here last year, right. Or some of them were here this year. So it's a credit to what we have done as a whole organization. I think if I sell out what we know, that doesn't make any good to anybody. So we'll keep doing what we're doing, and we'll keep our philosophy to ourselves and keep developing guys the way we do.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, and I'll end on this one then. As somebody who's seen Jackson all year, what was your favorite moment of his from the season?
Well, watching tonight.
Disney Plus, Hulu, and ESPN Plus. This fall, the Disney Bundle has all the action.
Holy smokes!
Watch live NFL and college football games on ESPN Plus. On Disney Plus, there's Loki Season 2.
War's on its way.
And Ahsoka.
Buckle up.
And on Hulu, you can watch The Boogeyman and Welcome to Wrexham.
Oh my God, the expectation.
All of these and more streaming this fall with the Disney Bundle. Blackouts and restrictions apply. 18 plus only. Access content from each service separately. Offer valid for eligible subscribers only. Terms apply.
We interrupt this podcast to bring you another thrilling edition of Ghosts of the Miners. Now, here's your correspondent and host, Joshua Jackson.
Welcome back to Ghosts of the Miners, in which all of you out there in Radioland must identify the legitimate historical ball club or player hiding amidst the fraudulent pair. One once really was accustomed to towing the slab. The others would have to be invented in a lab. In the last segment, I asked you which of the following minor league baseball players did at one time exist. A. Johnny Begetter. B. Harold Breeding. C. Henry Spawning. You were brought up the right way if you picked B. Harold Breeding, who was born and bred in the New Orleans area and pitched in several minor leagues across 5 non-consecutive seasons from 1943 to 1950. Apparently unrelated to the Harold Breeding who set a record at California's Santa Ana Polytechnic High School by running a mile in 4 minutes 29.4 seconds in 1927, our Breeding started in pro ball at the age of 16, debuting with 5 games for the Appalachian League's Bristol Twins, who had a working agreement with the New York Giants. Late in the summer of '43, Breeding, then a student at Jesuit High School in New Orleans, had stood out at the American Legion's Little World Series and caught the attention of Giant scout Frank Rickey, brother to Branch Rickey, who as president of the St. Louis Cardinals in the 20s and 30s had more or less invented the modern farm system, and who had signed Jackie Robinson to the Dodgers in October of '45. The younger Rickey liked what he saw in Breeding, especially his fastball, enough to offer the righty a minor league contract in August and send him to the Appy League for the rest of the season. Back in Bristol in '44, a little older, a little wiser, Breeding was multiplying his talents on the bump. He set a record by striking out 15 Kingsport hitters in one start, and he earned national notice in the Sporting News for having fanned 28 in his first 2 starts of the year, with the paper referring to him as the ace of the Bristol staff. Breeding's parents, came up from New Orleans in June to see their boy earn his 4th victory, then followed the team for the next 2 weeks. The teenager finished the season with a league-leading 180 strikeouts in 174 innings, and he was also number 1 in wins with 14. How exactly Breeding spent the next couple years is a bit of a mystery, but there are some details in the historical record we can use to form a pretty good hypothesis. On the young ace's 18th birthday, August 10, 1944, while Breeding was with Bristol, the U.S. Marine Corps helped complete the 3-week battle to liberate Guam. Breeding was required, like all American men on their 18th birthdays, to register for selective service, and his draft card lists him at 5'8", 175 pounds, with a ruddy complexion and a scar on his right knee. The Bristol Baseball Club is listed as his employer. Over 1.5 million American men were inducted via the Selective Service that year, and Breeding appears on Marine Corps muster rolls beginning January of 1945 and carrying on through at least July of '46. He was stationed in North Carolina, then at San Francisco and Camp Pendleton in California, and yes, in Guam after the war. When Breeding passed away in 2004, he was interred with military honors provided by the Marine Corps. Like a perhaps incalculable number of ball players, Breeding, who over his life was a party to the breeding of 8 children, had legitimate talent but saw his best shot at making the big league swallowed up by the circumstances of the war. But he did spend another 3 seasons on farm clubs of the Pirates, starting with New Orleans in the Southern Association in 1948 and playing in the 3I League, the Eastern League, and the Big State League before calling it a career after the 1950 season. And that's how Harold Breeding populated the ballpark. Now, on to the question for next time. Which of these teams really knew how to jam in the minors of yesteryear? A, the Joliet Jazz. B, the Kansas City Blues. C, the New Glarus Polka Pokers. Want to know the answer? Swing it, Daddy-O. Or tune in the next Goes to the Minors. But for now, you'll have to excuse me. My producer Ben Hill is trying to get into the state fair, but he smells too foul.
We'll get out of here this week. Minor League Baseball awards season is upon us, and you can vote right now for Best Alternate Identity in the minor leagues. Voting ends September 29th, and the winner will be revealed on MLB Network on October 2nd. We got a handful of very good contenders for this year. You can vote at MILB.com/alternate-identity. You can vote between the Amarillo Calf Fries, the Eugene Exploding Whales, the Hartford Bouncing Pickles, the Hickory Dickory Ducks, the Hoosier State Tenderloins, the Hudson Valley Cider Donuts, the Norfolk Lumpia, which I believe is how we figured out you pronounce that, and the Springfield Cashew Chickens. You can vote for your favorite of minor league baseball's best alternate identity at MILB.com/alternate-identities. Final segment of this week's episode of the Show Before the Show podcast. We're running low on games remaining in this season and therefore promos with them. We're going to tell you what you should be watching out for this week on MILB.TV, but we're also going to run through some of the final promos of the 2023 season. Back with our pal Benjamin Hill. Ben, September promos are always kind of a different animal. What's coming up this week?
Yeah, not much, obviously, since AAA is winding down, and that's the only one in the regular season right now. AA in the playoffs. But I figured, hey, if I can do this for one more week, hold on for one more week, then I definitely should. So let's go with today. If you're listening to this podcast, the day came out, Friday, September 22nd. The Lehigh Valley Iron Pigs at Coca-Cola Park. They're playing the Worcester Red Sox, Sam's favorite team.
Well, I don't have favorites. My local team.
Okay, your local team. You're spiritually aligned.
Yeah, there we
go.
go.
Anyway, the Lehigh Valley Iron Pigs are having gender reveal night, and I don't know too many details about this, but it's not just one gender reveal, as in a gender reveal for one expecting couple. It is gender reveal night, so you could sign up for this, and they've been promoting it. So I don't know how all these gender reveals will happen throughout the night, if it's all at once, which seems a little confusing, or what. There probably will be some sort of fireworks element, maybe. It's a Friday, there's post-game fireworks. You can do fireworks with colors that maybe correspond to gender. I've seen that before at ballparks. But the team says, come celebrate with expecting parents as we throw them the largest gender reveal party in the Lehigh Valley. And for these kids, I'm sure they'll love to hear later. Like,
we found out who you were going to be.
You know how we announced to the world that you were a boy or you were a girl at a Lehigh Valley Iron Pigs game, and everyone cheered.
It got us talking, which is always the point of these promos, right?
That is the goal of promos across the minor league landscape. So that's coming up this week in Lehigh Valley. Sam, not a lot left on the MILB TV landscape either, but what do you got an eye on this week?
Yeah, so as Ben said, I mean, there's AAA regular season games continuing. There are the AA postseason series. You can watch those on MLB TV for sure. It's just, the way the postseason works. I don't know exactly who's going to be playing, who's going to be making the championship series in the Eastern, Southern, and Texas leagues over the weekend. So we'll put those aside. Keep an eye on the playoffs, MILB.com/playoffs. You'll get all the info there. I got my eye on Saturday's game. Now, Tyler, you and I just talked last segment about the ascension to AAA of Wyatt Langford, this year's 4th overall pick. Round Rock is going up against Tacoma. That is the free MLB or MILB.TV game of the day on Saturday. That's at 9:05 Eastern. Round Rock versus Tacoma. But you're not only getting Wyatt Langford, you're also getting the AAA debut of Jack Leiter. Jack Leiter, a prominent pick of the Rangers a few years ago, has really struggled at Double-A over the last 2 years. They put him on the development list in the middle of this season, had him work on his delivery. It seems much simpler now. He was getting much better results down the stretch. They're giving him one start here at AAA. Now, Round Rock is very much in the thick of the Pacific Coast League second half standings. So there's a potential for Jack Leiter and Wyatt Langford to play more games for the Express moving forward next week in the PCL Championship Series. But for now, tune in on Saturday. That game will be the free game of the day between Round Rock and Tacoma.
All kinds of good stuff coming up in this final 10 days, really, of the minor league baseball season here in 2023. And that'll do it for this week's episode of the Show Before the Show. For Benjamin Hill, Sam Dykstra, Josh Jackson, and everyone else, my name is Tyler Maughan. We'll catch you next week.